"What is that?" he sputtered, pointing a trembling finger at Trashbot 3000, who, at that very moment, was diligently polishing his metallic arm with a microfiber cloth. "That, Jerry," I said, my voice calm and even, "is Trashbot 3000, my robotic trash butler. He ensures 100% compliance with all HOA trash can regulations. You know, the ones you're so fond of? Look, I'm not a difficult guy. I'm what you might call a go-with-the-flow kind of person. I pay my taxes, mostly on time. I keep my lawn mowed, within acceptable HOA-approved height parameters, of course, and I even, begrudgingly, participate in the annual Prestige Meadows Holiday Decorating Contest, though my inflatable Santa collection is perpetually under scrutiny. But there's one thing, one single thing, that I absolutely cannot stand: HOA nitpicking. And when that nitpicking involves something as mundane, as utterly unimportant as trash cans, well, that's just a declaration of war. The rules in Prestige Meadows regarding trash pickup seemed simple enough on paper. Bins out by 7 a.m. on Tuesdays, bins back in by 7 p.m. the same day. Pretty standard, right, you'd think? I mean, we're talking about garbage, the stuff we want to get rid of. How complicated could it be? Oh, you sweet summer child, you have no idea. It all started with the envelope. You know the one. That thick, cream-colored, official-looking envelope with the Prestige Meadows Homeowners Association logo embossed on the front. It's the stationary equivalent of a horror movie jump scare. I found it tucked under my doormat, radiating an aura of impending doom. I ripped it open, my heart already sinking. And there it was, in all its bureaucratic glory. A violation notice. Violation. Trash can placement, it read. Details. Your trash cans were observed to be visible from the street for a period of 17 minutes past the allotted pickup window on Tuesday, July 18th. 17 minutes. I stared at the letter, dumbfounded. 17 minutes? Was this a joke? Was someone seriously monitoring my trash cans with a stopwatch? I was being threatened with a fine for this? "This is insane," I muttered, crumpling the letter in my fist. "Absolutely insane." But it wasn't a joke. Oh no. This was just the beginning. The opening salvo in what would soon become an all-out war over garbage. Over the next few weeks, I became intimately acquainted with the HOA's intricate, Byzantine, and utterly ridiculous trash can regulations. I was fined for putting the bins out too early. Apparently 6:58 a.m. is pushing it. I was fined for not bringing them in fast enough. The truck came early. What was I supposed to do, chase it down the street? And then, the pièce de résistance. I received a warning for bin placement affecting neighborhood aesthetics. Affecting neighborhood aesthetics? I yelled at the letter, startling my cat, Mittens. It's garbage, Carol. What does that even mean? Were my bins not coordinating with the color scheme of the street? Were they clashing with the petunias? I needed to vent. I needed to share my pain with someone who would understand. I needed to call my sister, Carol. "Carol?" I said, as soon as she answered. "They're fining me for breathing near my trash cans, I swear. They're saying my bin placement is affecting the neighborhood's aesthetics. I think they have someone hiding in the bushes with a stopwatch and a protractor." Carol, who lives in a blissful HOA-free rural paradise where she can apparently leave her trash cans out for days without fear of reprisal, just burst out laughing. "Oh, Bob," she said between gasps of laughter, "you've got yourself a real gem of an HOA president there. Sounds like someone needs a hobby." "A hobby that doesn't involve harassing me about my garbage," I retorted. I decided I needed to know who was behind this madness. Who was this mysterious, trash-obsessed overlord who was making my life a living hell? I needed to put a face to the name on those infuriating violation notices. So I did something I'd been actively avoiding for years. I attended a Prestige Meadows neighborhood watch meeting. I figured the person in charge of trash can surveillance would definitely be at a neighborhood watch meeting, plus they advertised free cookies, and I'm a sucker for free cookies. The meeting was held in the community center, a room that smelled faintly of chlorine and desperation. There were about 20 people there, mostly retirees, and, of course, him. Gerald Jerry Kensington IV, HOA president, self-proclaimed guardian of suburban perfection, and, as I would soon discover, the world's foremost, and most likely only, expert on the proper placement, timing, and aesthetic presentation of residential trash receptacles. Jerry was everything I expected and more. He was a tall, thin man, with a perfectly combed silver hair, a perpetually disapproving frown, and the kind of "I'm better than you" smirk that made you want to punch him in the face. He was wearing a polo shirt tucked into khaki shorts, with knee-high socks and sandals, and he wielded that clipboard of his like a weapon, like it was Excalibur and he was King Arthur of the cul-de-sac. The meeting itself was a masterclass in suburban banality. We discussed neighborhood speed limits, the proper way to prune rose bushes, apparently there's a wrong way, and, of course, the ever-present threat of improperly placed trash cans. Jerry spent a good 15 minutes lecturing us on the importance of curb appeal and maintaining property values. He actually used the phrase aesthetics of refuse receptacles. Refuse receptacles. I almost choked on my free cookie. "We must all do our part," Jerry intoned, his voice dripping with self-importance, "to ensure that Prestige Meadows remains a shining example of suburban excellence. And that starts with proper trash can management." I was starting to understand Carol's comment about needing a hobby. But the real kicker, the moment that solidified Jerry Kensington IV as my arch-nemesis, came the very next day. I was putting my trash cans out, meticulously checking my watch to make sure I was within the prescribed time window, when I saw him. Jerry, lurking across the street, hiding behind a ridiculously oversized azalea bush. He had his phone out, pointed directly at my house, and, I kid you not, a stopwatch in his other hand. He was timing me. He was actually, seriously, timing how long it took me to put out my trash cans. This was war. I marched right up to him, my blood boiling. "Jerry," I said, my voice dangerously low, "are you seriously timing my trash can retrieval?" Jerry, to his credit, didn't even flinch. He just looked at me with that smug, superior expression and said, without a hint of shame or embarrassment, "Rules are rules, Mr. Billingsworth, and we must all do our part to maintain the pristine beauty of Prestige Meadows. Timeliness is next to cleanliness, you know." That was it. That was the breaking point. I was done being reasonable. I was done being polite. I was done following the ridiculous, arbitrary rules of the Prestige Meadows HOA. If Jerry Kensington IV wanted to play games with garbage, then fine. We'd play. But I wasn't playing to follow the rules. I was playing to win. And I was going to win in the most spectacular, most over-the-top, most robotic way possible, because, let's be honest, what's more ridiculous than a man timing your trash cans? A robot taking them out for you. Okay, so Jerry wants to be a stickler for the rules? Fine. Two can play at that game. But I needed a way to guarantee compliance. I needed something foolproof, something precise, something that could follow the HOA's ridiculous trash can schedule down to the second. I needed a robot. A robot, I muttered to myself, pacing my living room. I need a trash can robot. The idea, once it took hold, was like a weed, impossible to get rid of. It was so absurd, so over the top, so perfectly petty, that I knew I had to do it. I'm not talking about some Roomba with a trash can strapped to it. Oh no. I was envisioning a full-blown, purpose-built trash-handling machine. A robotic butler, if you will, dedicated solely to the task of moving my trash cans to and from the curb with military precision. Now, I'm no engineer. I'm a software developer, which, admittedly, gives me some technical background. But building a robot from scratch? That was a whole new level of challenge. Luckily, I had two things on my side: a burning desire for revenge and the infinite wisdom of the internet. "Okay, Google," I said, "teach me how to build a robot that can handle my trash." And so began my descent into the fascinating and occasionally terrifying world of amateur robotics. I spent days researching everything. I learned about different types of motors: servo, stepper, DC, sensors, infrared, ultrasonic, LiDAR, and microcontrollers. Arduino, Raspberry Pi. The options were endless. I watched YouTube tutorials on robot chassis design, programming AI, and even how to solder without setting your house on fire. A surprisingly useful skill. My online shopping cart started to look like a mad scientist's wish list. I ordered motors, sensors, wheels, a metal chassis that looked suspiciously like a repurposed lawnmower, and enough wiring to connect the entire neighborhood. My credit card was definitely weeping. It was sending me concerned emails, but I was on a mission of robotic, trash-related justice. The parts started arriving, and I transformed my garage into a makeshift robotics lab. It was organized chaos, a beautiful mess of wires, tools, circuit boards, and half-assembled robot parts. My cat, Mittens, took one look at the scene and promptly moved out to the guest bedroom. I think she was afraid I was going to try to automate her next. Let me tell you, building a robot from scratch is hard. It's not like putting together IKEA furniture. There are no clearly labeled parts, no easy-to-follow instructions. It's a lot of trial and error, a lot of head-scratching, and a lot of muttering. Why isn't this working? I electrocuted myself, mildly, thankfully, at least 3 times. I set off the smoke alarm, twice, while trying to solder some particularly delicate connections. And then there was the incident with the mailman. Let's just say I accidentally programmed the early prototype to aggressively pursue any moving object within a 5-foot radius. The mailman was not amused. I had to give him a gift certificate to the local bakery as an apology, but slowly, painstakingly, my creation started to take shape. I named him TrashBot 3000 because, well, it sounded cool, and also because I'm not particularly original when it comes to naming robots. TrashBot 3000 was a sight to behold. He wasn't exactly sleek and futuristic looking. He was more functional. He had a boxy metal chassis, the repurposed lawnmower, 4 heavy-duty wheels, and 2 robotic arms that I'd salvaged from an old industrial robot arm I found on eBay. Don't ask. But looks weren't important. Functionality was, and TrashBot 3000 had that in spades. Here's what he could do. Motion tracking. I installed infrared sensors that could detect the approach of the trash truck. This was crucial for precise timing. Perfect timing. I programmed TrashBot with the exact schedule for trash pickup. He was accurate down to the second. He'd roll those bins out at 6 hours, 59 minutes, and 50 seconds a.m., and bring them back at 7 hours, 2 minutes, and 0 seconds a.m. No more 17-minute violations for me. Humanoid-ish form. Okay, humanoid is a stretch. He was basically a metal box on wheels with arms, but I added a few decorative touches. I spray-painted him a sleek, metallic silver, and, because I'm all about the details, I even gave him a little tuxedo decal on his front. A trash butler needs to look the part, after all. Voice activation. And, because I couldn't resist, I gave him a voice. I programmed a built-in speaker and recorded a few phrases in a smooth, sophisticated, slightly sarcastic British accent. "Greetings, citizens," TrashBot 3000 would announce, in his perfectly modulated tones. "I am fulfilling my garbage duty." I also added a few other phrases, just for fun. "Taking out the trash, Beep boop. The final test run was scheduled for Tuesday morning. Trash day. Judgment day. I woke up before dawn, filled with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. I checked Trashbot's battery levels, made sure his sensors were clean, and gave his tuxedo decal a final polish. "This is it, buddy," I said, patting him on his metallic head. "Showtime." At precisely 6:58 a.m., I activated Trashbot. He whirred to life, his internal motors humming. Then, with a smooth, almost graceful motion, he rolled out of the garage, pushing my 2 trash bins, one for regular trash, one for recycling. I'm environmentally conscious, even in my revenge, ahead of him. I watched from my window, holding my breath. 6 hours, 59 minutes, and 50 seconds a.m. Trashbot reached the curb. 7 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds a.m. sharp. The bins were in position. Perfect. A few minutes later, the trash truck rumbled down the street. The sanitation workers emptied my bins, completely oblivious to the robotic marvel that was standing just a few feet away. And then, at 7 hours, 2 minutes, and 0 seconds a.m. sharp, Trashbot sprang back into action. He retrieved the empty bins, turned with a precise, robotic pivot, and rolled back into the garage, announcing, "Garbage duty completed, returning to base." It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was a triumph of engineering, a testament to human ingenuity, and a giant, robotic middle finger to the HOA. And then I saw him. Jerry. He was standing across the street, his jaw hanging open, his eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and horror. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost, or worse, a robot taking out the trash. I gave him a little wave, a smug smile spreading across my face. Jerry just stood there, speechless, probably contemplating his life choices and wondering how he'd managed to inspire the creation of a robotic trash butler. It was without a doubt the best Tuesday morning of my life. The look on Jerry's face was priceless. It was a mixture of shock, horror, disbelief, and pure, unadulterated rage. He was livid. I mean, steam practically coming out of his ears, face redder than a fire hydrant, veins bulging in his forehead livid. It was beautiful. He didn't even bother with pleasantries. He just stormed across the street, practically vibrating with fury, his perfectly manicured lawn probably trembling in fear beneath his sensible sandals. "What is that?" he sputtered, pointing a trembling finger at Trashbot 3000, who, at that very moment, was diligently polishing his metallic arm with a microfiber cloth. I added that feature for extra flair, and also because robots should have good hygiene. "That, Jerry," I said, my voice calm and even, the picture of serene suburban innocence, is Trashbot 3000, my robotic trash butler. He ensures 100% compliance with all HOA trash can regulations, you know, the ones you're so fond of. Jerry's eyes bulged. He opened his mouth to speak, but only a series of strangled noises came out. He looked like a fish out of water, gasping for air, or, more accurately, gasping for a rule violation. It's... Jerry stammered, finally managing to form a few semi-coherent words. "It's a robot, taking out the trash. This is... Efficient?" I offered helpfully. "Precise? HOA compliant?" "It's outrageous," Jerry finally exploded. It's unneighborly. It's... He was clearly struggling to find a valid objection. He was grasping at straws, desperately searching for some rule, any rule, in the HOA handbook that I had violated. But he couldn't, because there weren't any. Trashbot 3000 was a masterpiece of HOA-proof engineering. He followed every rule to the letter, to the second, to the millimeter. He was the ultimate embodiment of malicious compliance. "I don't see any rules against robotic assistance, Jerry," I said, shrugging innocently. "In fact, I believe Trashbot is enhancing the neighborhood. He's certainly improving my quality of life. Trashbot 3000, as if on cue, finished polishing his arm and turned his robotic head towards Jerry. "Greetings, citizen," he said in his smooth British accent. "Is there anything I can assist you with?" Jerry just stared, speechless, defeated. He looked like he was about to have a full-blown aneurysm right there on my perfectly manicured and HOA-approved lawn. Jerry, true to form, didn't take this lying down. He couldn't find me, he couldn't cite me, he couldn't do anything about Trashbot directly. So he did what any self-respecting, power-hungry HOA president would do. He called an emergency meeting. The meeting, held that very evening, was packed. The entire population of Prestige Meadows, it seemed, had turned out to witness the spectacle. Word of Trashbot 3000 had spread like wildfire, and everyone wanted to see what the fuss was about. Jerry, looking even more flustered and disheveled than usual, his perfectly combed hair was slightly askew, a sure sign of his impending mental breakdown, stood at the podium, his clipboard clutched in his white-knuckled grip. This cannot stand," he declared, his voice wavering slightly. "Mr. Billingsworth's contraption is a threat to everything we hold dear in Prestige Meadows." He launched into a passionate, if slightly unhinged speech about the dangers of automated trash systems. "They're a threat to community stability," he cried, his voice rising in pitch. "They're a distraction. They're too advanced. They set a dangerous precedent. What's next? Robotic lawnmowers, robotic dog walkers, robotic HOA presidents?" He shuddered at the thought. He sounded like he was describing a full-scale robot uprising, a dystopian future where machines had taken over, not a helpful, albeit slightly eccentric, trash can Butler. But here's the thing. The neighbors loved Trashbot 3000. They thought he was hilarious. They thought he was ingenious. They thought he was kind of cool. The initial shock had worn off, and now they were just amused. And then the questions and comments and support started. My next-door neighbor, Dave, a friendly, easygoing guy who'd always been pretty neutral in the HOA wars, stood up. "Actually, Jerry," he said, a mischievous grin on his face, "I think Trashbot is pretty awesome. I mean, it's kind of brilliant, really. I'd love to have one. Do you have the blueprints, Bob?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Then Mrs. Henderson, the sweet old lady from across the street, chimed in. "I think he's rather charming," she said, "and he always waves at me when he goes by." I hadn't actually programmed Trashbot to wave, but I wasn't about to correct her. Someone else shouted, "Yeah, maybe we could get a bulk discount if we all order them together. Think of the time savings." Suddenly, the entire meeting had devolved into a chaotic discussion about Trashbot 3000. People were asking me questions about his features, his programming, his battery life. Someone actually called a local tech company during the meeting to inquire about the possibility of mass-producing Trashbots. And then, to top it all off, a reporter from the local news, who'd been tipped off about the robot uprising in Prestige Meadows, showed up with a camera crew. They filmed a segment about the suburban robot revolution, featuring interviews with me, wearing my I Heart Trashbot t-shirt, my delighted neighbors, and a very, very unhappy Jerry Kensington IV. Jerry was outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and utterly, completely defeated. His reign of trash can terror was over. The robots, it seemed, had won. The aftermath of the great Trashbot meeting of 23, as it became known in Prestige Meadows lore, was, in a word, glorious. Jerry Kensington IV, the once mighty tyrant of trash cans, was utterly, completely, and hilariously defeated. He resigned from the HOA presidency in disgrace, effective immediately. I heard he actually muttered something about moving to a simpler community, one free from the tyranny of technological terrors. The rumor mill, which in Prestige Meadows was basically a high-speed fiber optic network, had it that he'd ended up in a yurt in Montana, living off the grid, presumably still traumatized by the sight of a robot doing its civic duty. Me? I became a local legend, the robot guy of Prestige Meadows, the man who dared to challenge the HOA and won. People would stop me on the street to shake my hand, to congratulate me on my ingenuity, and, of course, to ask about Trashbot 3000. "He's a marvel of engineering," I'd say, puffing out my chest with pride, even though, let's be honest, I mostly just followed online tutorials. A true testament to the power of, trash management. It was a good time. A very good time. With Jerry gone and the HOA effectively neutralized, I could have just retired Trashbot 3000, declared victory, and gone back to a life of quiet, non-robotic trash disposal. But where's the fun in that? I decided to upgrade Trashbot. Because why not? He was already a local celebrity. Might as well make him even more impressive. First, I added a voice modulator. The pre-programmed British accent was good, but I wanted more. I wanted customization. I wanted Trashbot to be able to taunt my enemies, or, former enemies, in a variety of amusing ways. So I programmed in a few new phrases. My personal favorite? "Enjoy your day, Jerry," which Trashbot would cheerfully announce every time he rolled past the spot where Jerry's house used to be. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Then, because I'm all about efficiency, I added a built-in leaf blower. Trashbot 3000 could now handle both garbage disposal and yard work. Multitasking is important, even for robots. And, because I'm also all about ambiance, I installed a high-quality sound system. Trashbot now rolled down the driveway to the majestic strains of classical music. Vivaldi's Four Seasons was a particular favorite. It added a touch of class, a certain je ne sais quoi, to the whole trash removal process. The local news coverage, of course, continued. I was even contacted by a small robotics company, Automated Solutions, Inc. That was interested in potentially manufacturing and selling Trashbots on a larger scale. They saw the commercial potential. I saw dollar signs. We talked, but nothing concrete yet. Then, a "for sale" sign went up down the street. It wasn't too long after that a moving truck pulled up. New people were moving in. One sunny afternoon, I was out in my driveway tinkering with Trashbot's programming. I was attempting to teach him to do the Macarena because, well, why wouldn't you teach a robot to do the Macarena? It was proving more challenging than I'd anticipated. As I was wrestling with a particularly stubborn line of code, I noticed the new neighbors, a young couple, walking towards me. They were looking at Trashbot with a mixture of curiosity and slight apprehension. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice hesitant. "We're new to the neighborhood, and we were just wondering, why does your trash get taken out by a robot in a tuxedo?" I straightened up, wiped my greasy hands on my jeans, and gave them my best "this is perfectly normal" smile. "Oh, that?" I said, gesturing casually at Trashbot 3000, who was currently frozen mid-Macarena pose, one robotic arm pointing awkwardly towards the sky. Just a little HOA misunderstanding. And then I proceeded to tell them the whole story. The insane trash can rules, the tyrannical Jerry Kensington IV, the birth of Trashbot 3000, the epic HOA showdown, the glorious victory. I spared no detail. By the end of the story, the couple was in stitches. "That's the most amazing thing I've ever heard," the man said, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're a legend," the woman added, grinning. "I try," I said modestly. "I try." I looked over at Trashbot, his robotic eyes looking empty. I looked back at my new neighbors and thought about the company who were interested in buying him. You know, they wanted to offer me money for him, for Trashbot, I say. But I said no. No? The woman asked. Yeah, no, I mean, look at him. He is one of a kind, I respond. Besides, what would I do without him? Actually take out the trash myself. I let out a chuckle. And with that, I went back to tinkering with my robotic butler, leaving the new neighbors to ponder the glorious absurdity of life in Prestige Meadows, where the trash cans are managed by robots, and the HOA presidents are vanquished by sheer unadulterated festive spite. It was a good life, a very good life, and Trashbot 3000 was here to stay.